This is it, freaks. We're entering the zone where several Allied planes have disappeared, including one of our special operatives.
Creature Commandos premiered in December of last year, and it is peak fiction. James Gunn made this animated series the first project in the DCU. The animated series does a great job developing these characters in the first phase of this new DC film universe titled Gods and Monsters. I really love that monsters are the first thing introduced in this new cinematic universe. Going for an obscure DC group for the rebooted universe's first outing is a complete James Gunn move. Creature Commandos is an animated series and not a movie, since Superman will be the first live-action film. However, this show is still very important as it has a lot of world building for the DCU's future going forward. Creature Commandos is great in its own right as its own animated thing, and the fact this is canon too is a bonus. The series essentially is a spiritual sequel to the Suicide Squad, which follows the same format. It acknowledges the events of the Suicide Squad along with Peacemaker, confirming that James Gunn's previous projects from the old DCEU carried over. While that may upset Snyderverse fans, it's been nearly 4 years since the Snyder Cut. At this point, it's time to move on. However, rather than dwell in the past, I'd rather embrace the new, so without further ado, let's take a look at Creature Commandos Season 1. Creature Commandos is essentially, like I said earlier, a new take on the Suicide Squad formula. Rather than simply be supervillains like in the Suicide Squad movies, the Creature Commandos are monsters and pose a much bigger threat than before. I will say the Suicide Squad not being a threat was solely a problem in the first film, since aside from Diablo, it was a team of mostly humans who were tasked to fight against an evil goddess named Enchantress. James Gunn fixed that issue in the soft reboot by having a team with more variety who are tasked with a smaller scale job than fighting a goddess of initially infiltrating a foreign country they don't want superheroes to know about. Yeah, there's Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and Harley Quinn who are just humans skilled at shooting and hand-to-hand combat. However, in the film they are members with more useful abilities too, like King Shark, Polka Dot Man, and Ratcatcher 2. While similar to Enchantress, we have a high-stakes villain in the form of Starro. It's more believable that this team can stop it. Back to the main topic. In Creature Commandos, the spiritual successor to the Suicide Squad, we even have a familiar face from that very film, Weasel, who happened to survive at the end. Weasel was not a big part of the film and seemed like a joke initially, but this animated show makes him a very tragic character, which I'll get to later. The show is about this new team of monsters organized by Amanda Waller that is led by Rick Flag Sr., the father of the man Peacemaker killed. After the events of Peacemaker, Waller's Task Force X can no longer legally operate with human subjects, therefore she uses the Creature Commandos as a loophole. Unlike Task Force X, there are no bombs placed in the heads of the commandos, but rather a chip that gives them all a painful shock. Similar to the Suicide Squad, the Creature Commandos end up being tasked with going to a foreign nation, that being the fictional land of Pokolistan. The team needs to protect the princess from Cersei, a Wonder Woman villain, and her army of far-right incels, the Sons of Themyscira. Her goal at the start of this series is to kill Princess Alana, and the Commandos must thwart her plan to do so. The creatures in the Commandos at the start consist of the Bride, G.I. Robot, Weasel, Dr. Phosphorus, and Nina. After the first episode, which sets up the premise, the episodes that follow carry the story forward while providing origin stories for those members in that order. The exception to this rule is Eric Frankenstein, who is depicted in the intro and promotional material as being an official member. However, that is far from the truth. He gets his own episode that deals with his past, but he is not a part of the team whatsoever. Despite that, Eric Frankenstein has a big connection to the Bride, especially due to the fact he is the reason she exists. Anyway, for this video, I feel like it'd be interesting to first organize it by character. The show gives focus to a character each episode, so this format makes a lot of sense to me. Starting things off, it's time to cover the bride. We learn more about the bride in Eric Frankenstein's past when the bride returns to the castle she was created in. Eric at the start can be summed up in one word: entitled. He begs his father Victor to create him a bride of his own, and expects right out of the gate that she will love him. However, Eric's fatal flaw is that he believes he can be in a relationship with her as soon as she comes to life. This, of course, terrifies the bride, who has just recently gained consciousness. I don't blame her, honestly, since if I saw Frankenstein's monster with flowers over me as a newborn baby, I'd be screaming at the top of my lungs. Victor tries to tell his monster son that the bride has a lot to learn as a newly formed being. However, he refuses to listen. Tired of waiting for her to form sentences, Eric leaves while his father teaches the bride how to talk. The flashbacks seem wholesome at first, with Victor teaching the bride what a gift is, that being the necklace she was searching for in the present. Things take a twisted turn, however, with Victor and the bride getting it on.
Oh, that's nasty.
It's wrong on so many levels, since not only is Victor Frankenstein the man who raised her, which is gross, but he's married too, meaning he is cheating on his wife with an undead corpse. While what Victor is doing is unethical, obviously, Eric's response to this isn't good either. He walks in on the two bumping uglies, gets really upset he's getting cucked by his dad, so he kills him. The bride, seeing the man who truly showed her compassion get murdered by Eric, of course, obviously upsets her. Following that, we get a fun montage of Eric pursuing the bride throughout time and constantly getting violently rejected by her. Shaggy is in the montage too, meaning Scooby-Doo is canon to the DCU. Can't wait for the live-action adaptation of this classic.
Batman, like when we get to the Batcave, could I get a little snack?
Yes, Shaggy, we'll all have a snack. Bat milk and cookies for everyone.
Bat milk?
Overall, the bride's origin, as depicted in episode 2, is very compelling. I really like how, despite Eric envisioning the bride as his own wife, she flat out rejects him. And I don't blame her one bit for not wanting to be with him due to his overt creepiness that he fails to mask with a fake nice guy persona. The bride comes off at the start of the show as a very cold character, however, she deep down cares for the safety of others. She becomes close with Nina during this first season of the show. She even saves sex workers from creepy metahuman men. This fits her character as she has dealt with Eric's creepiness for decades at this point. Now we've got G.I. Robot, who is a pretty simple character at first glance. He's a robot programmed to kill Nazis in World War II. However, despite being a machine programmed to do that, he enjoys the company of his fellow soldiers. After ending the lives of numerous Nazis, his soldier buddies take him to a bar and say,
Cheers to the Tin Man.
I really love G.I. Robot's progression in episode 3, which details his origin as he goes decades without killing Nazis, which is his programmed prime directive. I was worried his AI would go Ari in a tragic way, but no, G.I. Robot is a very chill dude as long as you're not a Nazi. G.I. Robot still remembers his army friends, and as time progresses, he is even shown to miss them.
Someday, I'd like to be reunited and see my boys.
Your boys?
The boys of Easy Company, sir. And kill Nazis with them.
G.I. Robot changes hands and gets bought by a dorky guy who owns a lot of cats. He seems like a normal, kind individual until he goes on a road trip with him. It turns out his seemingly normal owner ended up taking him to a Nazi meetup, and G.I. Robot ends up having the time of his life, turning the fascists into Swiss cheese to his ex-owner's devastation. Sadly, the police ignore the Nazi imagery all over the building and arrest G.I. Robot for apparent murder.
What murder?
G.I. Robot was an overall really fun character in the show, even if he did not last long. He's hyper fixated on killing Nazis, and I find that hilarious. Besides that, though, G.I. is not a one-note robot, as similar to his World War II army buddies in the past, he also enjoyed the company of the Creature Commandos, especially Nina. He ends up getting destroyed by Cersei, but not before killing her army of incels who Rick Flag Sr. assures G.I. Robot are Nazis. James Gunn sure has a habit of ending the lives of likable characters during their happiest moments. G.I. Robot's demise reminds me of Polka Dot Man's. However, Polka Dot Man's death is way more tragic since he got crushed to death. G.I. Robot on the hand is a robot, so he can get rebuilt. G.I. died doing what he loved, killing Nazis. While he is a robot, I still hope he can see his boys again in the afterlife. Weasel, who at first glance is a joke character like I said earlier, has a very tragic backstory. While the reason for him being a humanoid weasel is unknown, he is revealed to be a very fun-loving creature. Weasel plays with a group of children at a school at night who enjoy his company. However, sadly, an old crusty boomer judges him by his appearance, believing him to be a threat to the kids. The kids, being kids, end up playing with fire, and Weasel attempts to save them. However, the old fart ends up snitching on Weasel to the cops, who have no idea he's trying to save the children. Weasel tries to rescue the blonde little girl's life, but unfortunately he gets captured and is unable to save her. It pisses me off how useless the cops are, as they put their focus on harming Weasel rather than actually saving the kids. Weasel sadly gets blamed for their deaths, which gives context to why he was arrested and became part of the Suicide Squad and later the Creature Commandos. Weasel at the start of the show appears just to be a feral animal, as he's been shown to piss himself to the disgust of Dr. Phosphorus. However, he is shown to be harmless and of very timid nature most of the show. Rather than fight a pack of wolves, he ends up befriending them. However, that nature changes when we see Cersei try to hurt the princess. It's there he goes rabid animal mode and saves her life. This is because we learn the princess looks similar to the blonde little girl he tried to save. The fact she's still on his mind is depressing. This makes Weasel a very tragic character, but he isn't the most tragic. That goes to Dr. Phosphorus. Dr. Phosphorus, formerly Alex Sartorius, was a married man with a son. However, after giving nuclear paperwork camouflages cancer treatment research, it angers mob boss Rupert Thorne. The guy is cold-hearted, so much so that him and his goons push him towards his wife and son's corpses. Rupert then puts Alex in a radiation chamber. However, he doesn't die and escapes and gets revenge on those who wronged him, including Rupert Thorne and his family.
Who wants to shake hands with the skeleton?
What the fuck? The kid got killed too? Well, as dark as this is, at least they're even now. Dr. Phosphorus does evil things after gaining his powers, but it feels earned as he got everything taken away from him. Dr. Phosphorus becomes a mob boss and gets control of Rupert's empire. I really like the mix of shots of him being a villain and the shots of him in the past with his wife and son. This shows, despite Alex getting a criminal empire, the family he lost is still on his mind. He dances a bit with his entourage. However, Batman shows up to ruin Dr. Phosphorus's fun. Dr. Phosphorus is depicted as being brutal with his powers all throughout the show. However, it is clear he can control the severity of it. In his early battle with Rick Flag Sr., he restrains himself with the goal of getting his phone to remove the shock chips. He injures Rick Flag a bit, but he definitely held back a ton. He doesn't hold back on the incels in episode 3 though, or later in the show, the Pocolistan guards. What I find interesting is Dr. Phosphorus is able to safely hold a little girl without harming her. The scene of him with the little girl is wholesome, and it mirrors how he used to toss his son in the air too in the past. Also, lastly, I like how Dr. Phosphorus was a bro to Rick after fighting him when he covered for him getting it on with the princess.
You got a point, Wheeze. He's an older guy. Probably has a lot of experience. Give him a full minute.
Nina is a tragic character too, and to be honest, even more than Dr. Phosphorus. Damn, the characters keep progressively getting sadder backstories. She was born with lungs outside her body and needed an apparatus to breathe. Nina's mom objects to her father raising a physically disabled child, so she separates from him. Nina's dad then experiments, hoping to fix her ailment, but Nina becomes a fish girl instead. Later in life, she constantly gets bullied at school to the point she abandons her home and lives in the water. However, the public views Nina as a monster, and the cops kill her dad, who simply wanted to comfort her. She's honestly the most tragic of all the commandos, as she got treated as a monster despite being nothing but kind. Nina, overall, is the heart of this team, as she sees the good in the bride despite her cold facade she puts on. She's the most innocent and kind out of all of them, which makes her death at the end all the more tragic. I'll get to that lastly, but now it's time to talk about Eric Frankenstein. Eric, once he gets introduced again, appears to play a bigger role as the show progresses. He ends up running into Rick Flag Sr. under the delusion he's dating the bride. He learns that's not the case, and the two team up to save Princess Alana as the commandos get tasked to kill her after Cersei shows Waller a vision of her destroying the world. You'd think the two would go on a fun road trip adventure together to catch up with the Creature Commandos. Rick and Eric could bond and learn that the people they love truly aren't into them. Rick would learn that the princess is truly evil and using him, while Eric would get the aha moment where he realizes the bride doesn't want his musty, dusty ass.
We can help each other.
Best friends.
What?
Nope! Instead, Clayface bodies Rick Sr., who is hospitalized for the rest of the season. This leaves Eric on a solo mission to stop the bride from killing the princess. He goes to Pokolistan and gets bodied by the bride and is never seen again. Okay, he's alive. Cool. As of season 1, he's shown to be a straight-up villain. In his flashback episode, Eric even kills his blind mother figure after she tells him what he doesn't want to hear, that the bride will never love him.
She does not love you. Why can you not face this?
Eric is not stupid fully, as he is shown to be well versed in romantic comedies when he talks to Rick Flag. He's willfully ignorant of his advances and is a massive creep. I hope James Gunn pulls a Peacemaker on him, as I love the title character in it despite despising him in the Suicide Squad. I really hope Eric improves in season 2. Make him let go of his feelings for the bride and realize his obsession is toxic. Have Eric no longer view the bride as an object of desire, but an ally and platonic friend. Either that or fuck it, make Eric an endgame villain no longer in love who wants the bride dead. I'm down for either, as long as the two don't end up being together as a couple. I'm guessing Eric could redeem himself, as he's a Creature Commandos member in the comics. Only time will tell. Anyway, I cover the character origins and arcs in the show, so now I'll talk about the conclusion of season 1. Nina, who never killed anyone before, is tasked to kill the princess. Unfortunately, the princess kills Nina in apparent self-defense. Alana was shown to cause the apocalypse with Gorilla Grodd in Cersei's vision. It turns out, Clayface tried to make it look like the vision was false by killing the woman who verified the vision and shapeshifting into her. Evidence supports that, as Clayface is in Pokolistan in video found by the Commandos. The bride catches the princess in her lie and kills her, not to end her planned apocalypse, but to avenge Nina. I honestly do wish she got more development as a villain though prior, like how did she meet Clayface? How did she meet Gorilla Grodd? Despite that, the finale was fine. Nina deserved better though. The season finale ends with new and old faces of the next Creatures Commando team, which the bride now leads. We got G.A. Robot back, let's go! We also got King Shark, fuck yeah! Season 2 is gonna be lit. But yeah, Creature Commandos is pretty good. The character growth the Commandos get in this first season of the show was perfect. I got some criticisms though. It feels like a retelling of the Suicide Squad, but with slightly smaller stakes. There's no big battle like Starro, and I honestly believe we'd see Grodd, but no. All we got is, yeah, the princess is evil and would have destroyed the world, along with the death of many heroes and civilians. That's high stakes, but she's just a normal human. I wish Clayface was in the final episode, honestly. He could have easily snuck onto the plane on Eric's shoe or something and been a great antagonist they need to stop before the princess gets killed. Obviously, though, I still love this first season regardless. The art style by Bullock is unique, along with the animation by his studio Bobby Pills. The music choices in the show are neat too. James Gunn knows how to put together a good mix of tunes. Anyway, overall, I'm looking forward to the future of the DCU. The new Superman film looks great, and I am hyped for it. I don't care what the Snyder Bros think. This has been Shade X, and I hope you all feel nothing but good vibes.
Who is she?
We don't know. We call her the Bride.
And his wretched giggling and his horrid gift-giving powers were the only obstacles to our love.
Now we can be together. This world holds nothing of worth besides beauty. If I were blind, I would kill myself.
Oh, my.
The beauty of my bride. That is what keeps me going.
Save it for hell, you stalker piece of shit.
Who's Jason and the Argonauts?
A sociopath who calls himself Dr. Phosphorus. He has irradiated skin he can use to burn through people and objects.
It's the age-old story of a nuclear scientist who goes crazy, murders his family, and then commits suicide by atomizing himself with nuclear energy.
Who wants to shake hands with the skeleton? That one looks like a discontinued dishwasher.
That dishwasher killed over 300 Nazis in World War II. I would have dismantled it, but I thought it might come in use someday. It's known as GI Robot.
Cheers to the Tin Man!
Here's for the Tin Man.
Absolutely. Cheers for the Tin Man! What is that thing?
The Weasel. It's one of the few soldiers still alive from Project Starfish in Corto Maltese, so we know it has what it takes to survive. Last one is Nina Mazursky.
What use is she walking around in a fishbowl?
Get her in water, it's a different story.
Put your hands in the air! Nina, you were never a burden. Step back now! You were the greatest gift.
I don't know how to kill someone. You shove the blade into her belly and twist. The water is yours. Home field advantage. She won't even see you coming.
Always love a good barbecue.
You wanted monsters. You got monsters.